Oh, oops. Thank you so much, Jason, for saying that there's no audio. Here I am talking like an idiot. I am Nicole van der Hoeven. Let us start over. Usually, I am much better about audio. Thank you for the heads up. Keep the comments coming if something is a little bit off. Thank you for pointing that out. Normally on this channel, I have pre-recorded videos where I talk about Obsidian and personal knowledge management. And as I was demonstrating without audio, apparently, normally this is the angle that you're probably used to from me. But today I thought that I would do a live stream to celebrate the fact that I just hit over 1,000 subscribers. So I wanted to give you some context about who I am so that you know where I'm coming from when I say something on the channel. I always think that when people review things, it's nice to know what they typically like so that I know whether or not I align with that. Hey, Gift is in the chat. Thank you so much, Gift, for coming and showing up. Let me know if the audio and video are okay. I've already made a mistake about that. Clearly the first time I'm doing this here anyway. And I also wanted to get to know you all because I don't know anything about some of you. So I just want to introduce myself a little bit since I never really did that here. I am a developer advocate at Grafana Labs. It's a company that is built around observability, but I don't really talk about that much on this channel. I work on a smaller team called K6 that was acquired. I live in the Netherlands. I'm currently in Maastricht in the south of the Netherlands, but I have this, I guess, a bucket list of like a wish list. I want to live on every habitable continent long term. My husband isn't too keen on that, but I've gotten a few things checked off. I am originally from the Philippines. I was born there. I spent half my life there and half my life outside. I've studied in the US and I went to Australia because my husband is Australian. And then together 5 years ago, we moved to the Netherlands. And we're actually planning another move to Portugal. Hopefully, pretty soon. We're working on it. I'm buying an apartment over there. I also don't really like the word minimalism, even though I agree with some of the principles. I like more the word min maxing, if that's a single word, because I think that you should be both minimizing things that you don't need and maximizing things that you want. And I love trying out new tools. And one of them, at least it was new about a year ago for me, a year and a bit ago, is Obsidian. Let's go into the questions here. So feel free if you have any questions about me or anything that I've made. Let me know in the comments. But I do already have some questions here queued up. Okay, from the Spiral Lab on YouTube. I would love to know about your Obsidian note-taking workflow. It all seems so promising, but I think I need a regular routine or habit of setting aside time for note-taking and also connection making, or I don't really see myself following through. I totally agree. I always have this problem. I think that anytime you start taking notes about things that you consume, you're going to have to resign yourself to the fact that, yeah, it's going to be more work if you haven't been doing it before. The way that I personally do it, there's like two things. One is every 9 p.m. for me. So I chose a time in the day when I'm most alert. For me, that's at night. And also, I'm not likely to be interrupted by work, although sometimes that happens. But I try to set aside a time every day where I go through my notes and start processing it. Because if I don't have that daily thing, by the end of the week, I just have so many things that I would then have to process. And it's so much that I rarely would do it at the end of the week. So I try to do as much on the go. But honestly, I wouldn't stress about it if you don't have the time to catch up to it. I think that I'm just checking my like kind of inbox tag here, but yeah, I've got over 100 of them that I haven't processed yet. I wouldn't really worry about it. It's if you're already at least capturing that information and capturing your highlights of it, then that's already the first step. So I think it's more important to keep up with the routine, even if you don't fully empty that inbox. Maybe it's also just not that important, right? Mare is asking, how much time do you spend on average in taking notes that aren't directly related to work? I'm trying to balance between enjoying the book or media at the moment and constantly thinking about what I'm learning from it and what notes should I make. Would love to know your view and approach. Cheers. How much time do I spend on average? I think I spend more time taking notes that aren't directly related to work. But then again, for me, work and personal are not really distinctions that I make. I just think it's kind of difficult to say for sure, oh, at 5 p.m., I'm no longer working and that's personal time. Being a developer advocate means that sometimes I'm presenting or being at community meetups that are past my official work hours, but I don't really see that as an imposition because sometimes I do personal things during traditional work hours too. So yeah, so one thing is it's not quite that easy for me to make a distinction. Like all the videos on this channel are things that I made in my personal time, but some of them you could argue have a direct relationship to my day job as a performance tester or developer advocate. So I also think that I don't really think of note taking as just for work or for school or whatever. It's just something that I do for most aspects of my life. So I would say I probably spend maybe an hour to 2 hours a day if you add it all up, taking notes in general. But that might be something as easy as like highlighting things from an article that I've read, or actually sitting down and processing those notes. Sometimes it's like taking notes at a meeting or taking notes during a call. I actually take notes even if it's not like a work meeting, because I think when I talk to somebody, if I care enough about them that I'm there on a call with them, then I might as well take notes on what's important to them as well. So yeah, so I hope that that helps. Another question. FNCT Jose. How do you use dungeon maps on Obsidian? Do you use more the leaflet extension or the theater of the mind? I saw your Obsidian publish has notes on 13th Age. What do you look for in other systems? And how do you take notes of for other TTRPG games? Okay, so there's like two questions here. Let me share my screen. Okay, and remove that for now. This is the questions that I was reading off of. But okay, if any of my players are watching, maybe look away for a second because I do want to show this is Leaflet. This is an Obsidian plugin that I do use, which Jose mentioned. This is how I do my dungeon maps for me. So this is a map of a little village, a bullywug village in the Wild Beyond the Witchlight. And I do use Leaflet to have like these little tags that are clickable. So if I go into one of them, let's say I click on that, it takes me to a spot on the map that I clicked on. And then I can also head back to the map. However, he was asking, I believe, whether I was using that for games. So I don't really use this. I don't use Obsidian during the game at all. I actually just use Owlbear Rodeo. I know that there are more fully featured VTTs or virtual tabletops, but I personally like Obsidian for my notes and Owlbear Rodeo as like a simple way to share things with my players. So that's what I do. And I think the other part of Jose's question was about my Obsidian published notes on 13th Age. And what do you look for in other systems, and how do you take notes for other TTRPG games? Okay, so let's go back into Obsidian so that I can show you what he is talking about. I have an Obsidian page, and a lot of this vault that I'm showing you here is already available on notes.nicolevanderhoeven.com. That's where I publish things that are publishable. I don't publish like private things, but I do have, even though I play more D&D than anything else, I run one D&D 5e game. I play in another D&D 5e game, and I used to play regularly 3 times. This 3 times a week now that I'm playing. The third game is normally a D&D 4e game that I play in, but it's moved to Pathfinder. But I am really interested in other RPGs as well and other systems. Oh, I let me show you this, because look, I'm actually wearing a Merkberg. It's a Merkberg shirt, and Merkberg is a Swedish RPG. I might be pronouncing it wrong. I don't speak Swedish, but back to the question. He was asking like what I try to take notes of. I don't. I do run some other games. Like I recently ran Fate Core, but I mainly use these for. I mainly look at the rule books of these systems just to figure out what I can put in my game. So, like here, I have interesting ideas to incorporate in the future. So here's my screen, and there are features or cool rules that I've found from different RPG systems. This is just my way of trying to keep track of things that maybe I want to incorporate in my own games. Next question. Head back here. This one's from Fernando Kobayashi. Oops, I think I might have missed something. This is the first one. Okay, do you see yourself going back to a regular QA or testing position in the future, or once you go avocado, you never go back? That's a funny question. So avocado is like a colloquial term for developer advocate. The advocate part is what I do. And I know that Fernando knows as well that before I was a developer advocate, I was in performance testing. I was a test consultant. I don't see myself going back to a regular QA or testing position. It's not that I don't like testing. Obviously, I feel like I'm still doing testing, but just when you are in a regular position and you're actually on a project doing hands-on testing, as a consultant, I found it incredibly demoralizing to just be encountering the same problems over and over again, and also providing the same solutions, or at least suggesting the same solutions. And then I stumbled across creating videos as a means for expressing myself. And then I thought, you know what, if I can just make a video and explain something like a concept and I don't ever have to do it again, that's going to be way easier for me in the long run. So the answer is I wouldn't say that I will never be anything but a developer advocate, but I certainly feel like I'm not going to go back. And he has a follow-up question. Also, do you spend a lot of time crafting side skills? So to say, like video editing stuff. Yes, I think being a developer advocate is like part technical and part talking to people. And so, yeah, definitely there's this thing where you have to split your attention between two different things. So there is I do some things on the technical side to keep my, my head in the game and make sure that I'm keeping up with things that are happening in the tech space. Obviously, that moves very quickly, but also like video editing. I learned that on my own, but you could certainly, if you're wanting to get into this as a job as well, you could definitely learn. There are also some courses and stuff online where you can learn video editing and other skills that are soft skills but might actually be more important. Okay, Philippe Martin says, I'd also like to know how you organize your notes, top down, MoC, that's maps of content, or other ideas. I'd love some insight. Okay. I know that this is super personal, right? And I believe that Philippe also says that in the continuation of his comment. Actually, let me just read the whole thing because I think I'm missing part of it. He's also saying, I know it's a very fluid and personal topic, but I'd like to gather others' ideas and try to extract what can work for me. So I'm going to share my screen again. I use maps of content. This is a page for chaos engineering, which is a topic that I come across a lot in my work. And this is like cobbled together from many other articles. And I started to create this map of content. So a map of content is like a different way of organizing your notes. There's typically the folder structure way. So, I mean, Obsidian has that as well, if you would like. Oops, did not mean to do that. But you can also have a folder structure in Obsidian where each of these contains one or more folders and then also notes. But honestly, I keep this collapsed for most of the time, and I do rely on these maps of content. A map of content is basically a page that is like a parent page or a parent note on a certain idea. And then underneath that, you can have different links to other notes that fall within that topic. I do use them. I'm not super strict about them. I know that there are like complex methodologies for figuring out when should you create a map of content, and should a map of content have, X amount of other pages that are linked to it. I don't really pay attention to much of that rigid methodology. I create pages when I feel like it, and that's pretty much it. So like here, if I go into one of these pages, so I'm linking to other things there as well. Some of them are pages that don't even exist. So I think it just depends on what you think. So Fernando has a comment on what I was saying. I totally get it. My concerns is kind of straying away from real world projects and problems. Actually, I think I still work on real world projects and problems. I mean, just because now I'm on the vendor side doesn't mean that I'm not exposed to real problems, because actually I'm seeing more of these problems at a faster pace because I don't have to see the entire project through. So I just have to be there, maybe sometimes at the start, sometimes I'm involved in getting people up and running on it, sometimes I'm involved on the education front. And it's really up to you to determine how involved you get. Okay, other questions? Maggie, can you use Obsidian for goal setting and progress tracking? If so, how? Yes, I do. I won't show you that just now because I think showing my goals is a level of vulnerability that I might not be ready to go to cross. It's like that threshold on the internet. But I do actually have a video on this. I think I called it "How to Set Goals." Here, let me post this in the chat so that you can see it as well. I have a whole video about it and how I use OKRs, which is objective and key results. How to set goals in Obsidian. I'm going to post it in the chat. So yes, I do use Obsidian for goal setting and progress tracking. I think that the most important thing for me is not just setting the goal, but making sure that at certain intervals, so I have reviews set up for daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly. It sounds like a lot, but I don't review everything on each of those periods. Some things I only review yearly. Some things I review daily, but they tend to be more specific and smaller in scope. Eve Presso, what is your approach when you learn a new language? So I speak a few languages. I think that languages are a huge part of the enjoyment of traveling. Languages are the way that I can talk to people. So I it's one of the things that I hold dearest, like being able to communicate with people. And I think it's always different when you can talk to someone in their language. My approach when I learn a new language is to throw out all the grammar stuff and just to talk, because I think even if you don't fully nail the grammar, most people will understand you. Like even in English, if you say bathroom where, okay, you didn't say it right, but most people will still understand that. So my approach is just to immerse myself and to get to that point where you're talking to someone whom you might not have been able to talk to if you didn't speak their language, even to a small degree. That moment of like that eureka moment is the best thing for me. And that's what keeps me going when I'm learning a language. So yeah, I jump into it. I also like watch things in that language. No, I don't understand most things, but eventually I pick up words. Let me remove that. Let's pick a comment. Have you found any interesting, non-obvious use cases for Dataview? Or have you added anything to your weekly or monthly note to track lately that you have found beneficial? Okay. I don't know if it's obvious to people. Data view, I think, is not an obvious thing in general. I get a lot of comments. In fact, that's the next video that I'm working on. Well, I have a video coming out probably next week about Readwise, but after that, I'm probably going to be working on data view because I don't think it's obvious. And even when I first looked into it, I was like, okay, this is really awesome. How do I use it? A few ways that I use data view. I use it for meetings. So every meeting that I create is now tagged with like the company that I had it with, because sometimes I'm talking to external clients. And then I have a summary as well, or a date. And sometimes I have attendees. And then in the attendees page, for example, if I have a page for, let's say, Rob went to this meeting, I will tag him, or I will link I will link his page to that meeting page. And then in the Rob page, I can probably show, I'm hesitant to show actual meetings or actual pages of people, but let me show a person a template. So, okay, so here's my template for a person. I usually have company, location, title, email, aliases like nicknames or something, languages they speak, published. I always say not to publish it because it's really secret. This is templater syntax. You don't really need to use it. Like instead of this, if you don't have the templater plugin enabled, you can use title. And then you'll be able to, this will pull in the title. This would normally be the name of the person. So you'll have the name of the person there. But I use Templater just because I use it a lot for other things. And then I have a data view query here where it is a list. It fetches a list from the person's name. So imagine that this will say like Rob. And the cool thing is that when that happens, the data view query will then pull in all of the meetings I've been to that had that person in there. So that's really useful because then I can be like, oh, hi, Rob, I haven't seen you since the last time when you said that your wife was sick or whatever. So I find data view really useful from that perspective. I'm going to give another D&D answer. Sorry, but like it's a big part of how I use it. I also have a template called NPCs in place. So this is my data view description for it. Oops, I don't think I clicked it. NPCs, this one. Yeah, this is my data view query where it pulls in people from a certain place. So this is saying, get me a table with a description from a certain path, so a folder, where I have the type specified to be an NPC, a non-player character, or it's a faction that is in a certain place, and then order it in ascending order. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. What can I show that won't be a spoiler? I'll show one where I'm a player. These are my notes. So here I've got a bunch of places, shops, and people. So if I go into that, this is a data view query. And the cool thing about data view is that you don't constantly have to update this page when you meet somebody new. It'll just automatically be pulled in. So I think that's really cool. So that's 2 uses. Maybe it was obvious to other people. It wasn't to me. Have you added anything to your weekly or monthly note to track lately that you have found beneficial? I haven't really changed my weekly and monthly templates in a while. I think the weekly one is really important for me because also have a bunch of like digital chores, like deleting your downloads folder or running a security sweep of your computer or even things like tidying up your room. I think that that's the best time for me because I don't do that stuff daily. And monthly, if I wait till a month before I like restart my computer or clean or tidy up my room, then it just turns into, well, a bit of a mess. So I think the chores like that are nice to do weekly. Okay. Carlos Godinez. Hola, Carlos. Any suggestions about using tagging in Obsidian? Yeah, tagging is not something that I really use a lot, honestly. There are different schools of thought on this, and the good thing about Obsidian is you can use whatever makes sense to you. I use tagging for some things. Let me show tag pane. See, I didn't even have it really set up. I do use it for checklists and for feedback. So whenever somebody gives me feedback about K6 is the company that I work for or the team that I work for, I tag it with K6. And the cool thing about tags is you can have it be nested. So like just as an example, you can have like test Nicole live. So you can have a tag like that. So it's a nested tag where it's like 3 levels deep. And okay, if we go to do here, so like there's heaps of them in here. Test Nicole live. So it's cool that you can create different levels of the tag. So you can have just one level here, but then you might want to have test secret recorded or whatever it is, and that will now have 2 different things in it. Now where did that go? Oops, go there. So these things, some of these I don't really use anymore. Anyway, some of them are just like because hashtag and topic are so common in tweets, and I do have my tweets going in here. It's a bit of a mess, which is why I don't really like it. But see here now there are 2 different levels, Nicole and Secret. So personally, the thing that I use it for the most are one, the to-dos, or one, the what I showed you, which was the feedback ones. Let me remove that because I don't need that. And then I also use it for my checklist. So let's say D&D because that's pretty safe. Find this quest giver. And then I have a plugin here called checklist. And I will go to D&D next. And now I've got find this quest giver here. So this is a cool way of just putting down tasks wherever that you may be. Like this could be in a meeting, it could be in a daily note or some other note, and it will all go to here. So when this is ticked off, well, actually this might be a bug because, maybe I have to do it here. Then when I tick this off here, then it'll be ticked off there as well. So I like that. That is the checklist plugin. It is a community plugin. Okay. Submit Sarkar. Sorry if I'm pronouncing these names wrong, by the way. How do you manage fleeting notes? Means just an one-line idea for which it is not necessary to create a new note. How do you manage those? Okay, if it's one line, I would definitely put it in a daily note. I I always enable the daily note plugin. It is a core plugin, so you don't even have to trust a third party to do it. It just comes installed in Obsidian, but not enabled by default. So I use that as kind of like a log. If it's just one line, I would just type it in there, maybe as a bullet point or something like, hey, Marco told me that I said something wrong in the last video, and that's it. then I would just leave it in the daily note, and I might, like in that case, I might tag Marco, for instance, as a person that had told me about it, and then I can just search for it if I want to find it later. NFT Otis. That's a very cool way to combine Dataview and Templater. Yeah, those are two plugins that are just so powerful, but they can do so much that it's almost daunting to start. I would start with Dataview because some of the functionalities of Templater that are the most useful are already in the templates core plugin. So I would start with Dataview. I think it adds more, and it's also more accessible. And I know that like it might look scary because it is very SQL like. It is a query language. But the thing is, if you just go to the developers README, like the wiki, you can just copy those examples and then just modify the query. I mean, that's mainly why I have like the NPCs in place query that I had. That's why I have it as a template, because I don't want to type it out each time once I've figured out what I want. I just like paste that and then modify it on the spot. There's also like another level to Dataview as well, which is that you can also use it instead of the SQL query language, you can use JavaScript. So that's if you want to get even more specific and custom about how things are displayed. Like if you start wanting to say, oh, if the result that was selected is from this folder, then display it this way. I don't really do that that much, really. I mostly use the SQL one. I'm glad HDubs and NFT Otis seem to be enjoying the quick data view demonstration. And I'm just noticing now, let me go back actually to my screen, because I showed the data view query, but I didn't show what the page looks like. Let me go into one of these NPCs. Okay, so Obsidian uses YAML front matter, right? And you can put some things like some things that are already recognized by Obsidian, kind of like publish. If you do publish false, that means that if you're using Obsidian publish, this page is never going to be published. This is fine to publish. But the cool thing is that with Dataview, you can really define any of these. So I have type, the type of the note as one of my parameters, but you could choose any of these to be anything that you want. So the way that I keep track of it is I even have a metadata page. So like for D&D, these are the things that it's kind of like a data model, honestly. And now that I'm looking at it, it's a bit embarrassing because I've gone to this length to do this, but it's helpful for me so that I know what the options are. And most of these anyway are pre-populated in NPC templates and whatever. But as you saw, so this is really mainly for D&D type stuff, but you saw that in my person template, so there, I also have these things that are always filled in. So I do use those parameters and regularly so that I can use Dataview to search through the values. If I create a new thing, I also have a new note. I also have a keyboard shortcut. It's a Command Option C, and it automatically brings in the title as a heading one and also the date. This is dependent as well on which folder it's in, and for that I use Templater. So let's quickly look at that. Yeah, so one of the cool things that Templater adds to the core templates plugin is it lets you bind templates to hotkeys, but also it lets you say that if I create a new note and it's in meeting, well, it's probably a person. So when I create that new note, just make it have the person template in it already. So, well, first let's delete this because I don't really need it. And let's say meeting, new person. And that already brings in people. That's so funny that it brings in as meetings these ones that look like they're NPCs. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because okay, that makes sense. All right, so I use Dataview for a lot of different things. I also use I want to, what I would like to do is use them for tool comparisons. So at work, there are lots of performance testing tools, and my company maintains one of them. And so I like to compare and contrast a lot of these tools. So I have like key features of that tool and whether they have certain features. I would love to be able to transfer these into data view format and then just be able to compare them that way. It'd be like, show me tools that support Citrix ICA as a protocol, something like that. But I know I can do it. It's just, more work. Okay, back to questions. Where was I? I already talked about my approach for learning a new language. Funniest travel story. I do have a travel channel, like a travel vlog channel that is really just mainly for me and my husband because we've traveled quite a bit and we love traveling together. And it's amazing how much you forget, even things that you think you'll never forget because they were such amazing experiences. We've found that we've forgotten. One of the things that immediately comes to mind is the first time that we went to the Netherlands. We didn't actually go here to Maastricht first. We went to Utrecht, which is way north of where we are now, but it's also an amazing city. So in Utrecht, there are these canals, right? My husband and I got onto one of them, onto one of the like what do you call it? Water feet, like water bikes, I guess. And you're supposed to go around the canal. And the guy who was selling us the tickets to get on the ride, it's not a ride, you actually have to paddle yourself through the canals. And he said, oh, you just have to follow this route. You go right, 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 except for this one where you go left. Or maybe it was left, 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 except for this one where you go right. And anyway, long story short, we missed the turn off. That thing that was so obvious to everybody was not obvious to us. And we found ourselves 3 kilometers I don't even know, like, were we still in Utrecht? The buildings disappeared and it was like all trees and swampy areas, and people were just trying to tell us, I think, to head back. At that time we didn't speak Dutch much at all. I spoke a bit of Dutch, but not enough to understand like the accent or people yelling from across the canal. But yeah, we felt really stupid. We took 3 hours to get back, and we then had to paddle upstream as well. Oh, it seems like a bad story, but at the time it was just, we were in the Netherlands for the first time. We were together. It started to rain. The whole thing was ludicrous, and it's just one of the best travel stories and also one of the funniest. A question from Jason. You seem to be pretty seriously into game design. Have you considered developing something to publish? Have I thought of it? Yeah, I think about a lot of things. I think about writing books. I think about changing careers. I think about many things. The thing is that at this point, I think there's a point in your life where you feel like you can learn anything or learn to be decent at something. It's just the time. And yeah, I would like to. I am pretty interested in RPGs and game design and story design, really. But maybe someday. At the moment, I don't feel like I could really add anything to that yet. But hey, I am just kind of letting my interests guide me, and maybe they'll guide me there at one point. It's a good question. Sam asks, for those looking for Notion-like features, what's the equivalent in Obsidian? Depends what you like about Notion. I think the thing that most people like about Notion is the interface. And in that case, then I think that Obsidian is way more flexible because you can change everything about how it looks. Obsidian is an Electron app. So it's kind of like a web app that's just repackaged, you know? And so that means that you can change everything about the CSS, that the style templates that are used. You can change your theme if you don't want to actually be writing the CSS yourself, which is totally understandable. Then you can just choose one of the community themes. And there's so many now that I think that the chances of you finding something that looks really nice are pretty high. So so for appearance, that's the equivalent. Another reason that people like Notion is the sharing capability. And that is the reason that I think that's one area where I think Notion is still way better. It's kind of fiddly to have real-time collaboration in Obsidian. And that's the truth. I mean, just because I'm using it doesn't mean I haven't made compromises. I do like that in Notion, you can leave comments, other people can leave comments, so it's better for a team. Whereas with Obsidian, the closest that I've come to that experience is by sharing a vault on Dropbox. And I shared the Dropbox folder with somebody else. So we were working off of the same thing, the same folder in Dropbox and the same Obsidian vault. And everything works well, and you see changes in real time, but you can't leave comments, right? And depending on what you're doing exactly, there might still be merge conflicts that you have to resolve. So it's not perfect. It's a little clunkier than Notion. One of the things that was holding me back from moving away from Notion entirely was actually the content calendar, which is why I made a video about it, because I don't know, maybe I'm the only one that was thinking about it, but Notion has this really awesome drag and drop calendar where you can use it to plan things that you're going to be working on. And for the longest time, I was using Obsidian for everything else, but Notion for the content calendar. So I made a whole video about how I figured out how to move all of that into Obsidian. Spoiler alert, I use Fantasy Calendar, and it's not drag and drop, so still not as good as Notion, but it's pretty good. And it was good enough that for me it was worth the switch. So now I only use Obsidian. I don't use any other note-taking tool because I like to try out new tools, but when I land on one, I don't really like to try that while I'm trying other things. I just like migrate to it and stick to it. Peter, you seem to be really on top of all your work and creating videos consistently. Any tips on how you're so consistent and how you manage your time so effectively? I think it's funny because perception is really your other people's perception of me is certainly different from how I feel. I don't feel like I'm on top of all my work. I feel like I'm constantly trying to get to the top, and I never quite put everything behind me. I feel like there's a never ending list of things that I should be doing, could be doing, but I never get around to doing it. And for silly reasons like, hey, I just don't feel like it right now. And that's part of why I spend so much time thinking about these task management systems and methodologies. And recently I talked about Reclaim. I love Reclaim. I think I've been trying calendar blocking for so long, and it never really worked for me until I found Reclaim. So the way that I do it is I use calendar blocking through this AI that Reclaim has that automatically tries to figure things out for you. So I guess you could just watch the video that I made on it because it's more eloquent than I probably will be able to be live here. But essentially it lets me treat tasks like meetings because I never miss meetings. I try never to, and I try not to be late. But I don't feel the same way about tasks. But really, a task is just like a meeting with yourself. It's a commitment to yourself. And if it's true that the commitment is the same, then the level of importance that you place on it should also be the same. So why shouldn't tasks go on calendars? So a key thing for me, and I'm not saying that it's for everybody because I know some people don't want to be planning out a lot of their days, But for me, I put important tasks in my calendar because that way I know that there's definitely going to be time. And most tasks are time sensitive in some way. Like sometimes it's just sometime this week or sometime before this date. And Reclaim lets me do it in those times rather than having to nail down a particular time slot. So, any tips on how you're so consistent? I don't feel consistent. I'm just trying to get by the same as everybody else, I think. City. City says, what is your 3 favorite tech travel gear? Okay. I have more travel gear than I think I'll ever use. I think my husband is he'd definitely agree with that. The first thing, and I can show you that now, is my phone because hey, look, that's me, by the way. But this is a Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 3, and it is a foldable phone. And I love it so much because when I'm traveling, especially if I'm traveling light, it replaces, I used to travel with my phone and my tablet and my Kindle, or sometimes my Kobo. So that's 3 things. And now I just take one thing because it is like the perfect size for reading things. So let me just open something up. Like, see, that's the Kindle app. And if I'm reading, this is Vagabonds. So it's just like it's the perfect size. I have this pop socket. So that's my number one tech travel gear. Although it's not just for travel because I use it every day, but I think that's what makes it so good. Let me grab this here. I also really like, ooh, what is this called? I think this is called like key card or something like that. It was a Kickstarter. Here, let me switch to this camera so you can kind of see. It is a key card thing, but when you open it, it's got a bunch of different cables. So it's got a USB-C cable, but it also has a micro USB to USB-C adapter. It all of these adapters go based on this one. So it also has like the SIM card ejection tool. There's an actual SIM card here. What else? It has a night light. It has a spot for a micro SD card for cameras and such and phones. And it also has like, well, I don't use this, but this is a lightning cable to USB-C. Um, Sorry for the for the tech review, but you did ask for tech travel gear. Another thing that happens to be sitting on my desk, this is a Lennon Minnow X. It is a portable speaker that is waterproof and it charges via USB-C. Everything that I have must charge by through USB-C. Otherwise, I'm probably not going to want to use it. But yeah, so that's the 3 that I like the best. I don't know. The best is really relative, right? But those are the 3 that I had at hand. Okay. Eve Presso says, what are your thoughts or your overall philosophy when building a second brain via note taking, and does it make sense? Well, I think it makes sense to me. I don't necessarily think that my way makes sense for everybody else. My philosophy is that first, that building a second brain is not just a thing that I do so that I can publish or create something for other people. I think creation is the way that I learn. Because when I start to try to explain something in a video, I realize I actually don't know this. If it doesn't come naturally to me, or if I can't talk about it convincingly, then maybe that's because I don't understand it myself. So then when I create a video, sometimes when I'm creating the structure, I'm like, oh, I should know that, but I don't quite have a good answer for it. So let me research it. So I think that my overall philosophy is that a second brain is not just a place to store things. It's also an active place, it's a place of learning, right? So it's not just storage, it's where you're actually processing that information and changing it. And I think a lot of people think of it as just a static like a static collection of information. But I think that if it's not constantly changing and being updated as you grow, then it's not really a brain, right? Because our brains don't just suddenly shut off after a certain point. The information that we get is constantly being questioned by things that we learn. So that's my philosophy. Makes sense to me. Another question from Eve. What do you think about switching note-taking apps every now and then? Notion, Rome, Obsidian. Is there always a new, better thing, or will we be able to settle on one? Well, first, you say we. I don't think we need to settle on one. I don't think that the community has to all pick one tool. I think each person gets to decide for themselves, right? Because my needs are different from everybody else's. I feel called out because I definitely am guilty of switching note-taking tools. I've been using Obsidian for I think it's actually closer to I want to say 2 years. I'm not entirely sure. 2 years now. Before that, I used Rome for about a year. And before that, I used Notion for about 2 years. And before that, I think Evernote and then TiddlyWiki. So yeah, I've used a lot of these tools. Should we be switching that often? No, I think there's really significant migration costs that maybe we might not that maybe might not be so obvious because of it's a new and shiny tool and we want to get everything else that we've written ever into that tool. And the reality is that that's always going to have some sort of period where you're still transitioning and trying to parse different formats and make it and turn it into something else. I think that it is possible that is too much work for you for some people. I personally enjoy it. I think I'm a bit biased because I'm coming at it from the point of view of a technologist, someone who is used to this in her daily job. And so when I saw Obsidian, it wasn't daunting, it was exciting. But I think if you look at Obsidian, you're like, oh, that's cool, but I would have to do so much. You know what? Don't even try it. Either either just make a break, like just decide I'm just starting from scratch and creating a new vault in Obsidian that doesn't have any of my old stuff, or you can just stick with what you've got already. I think we don't need to converge on a single tool. I think you get to choose the tool or combination of tools that works for you. And just because something is better doesn't mean that you should switch to it. Look for another question. Hello, Zano Psycho. Just saw your message there. Okay. Ash, what would you say to your younger self? Um, Man, I would say keep going. I would say learn in public more. See, I think most of us underestimate how difficult it is to be out there, to be public, whether that's writing a blog post or just speaking up at a meeting or putting yourself out there on a video. I think there's like this societal pressure where we think that that's somehow not a good thing, that it's like selling yourself or that it's too self-indulgent or something. And you know what? Maybe it is, but I've learned so much from putting my thoughts out there in public, more than I would have if I had just kept it to myself. It's not just because you're talking in public doesn't mean you have to be saying this is the way it is, everyone must follow what I think and this is the absolute truth. You can't just say like, hey, this is what I'm doing and I don't know if it's right for you, but that's just what I'm doing, and then that starts dialogue. So there's a way of approaching being in public that is more about learning and talking with other people and learning from what they say. I find that I gravitate towards that because I never feel like I'm an expert on really pretty much anything. Fernando has another question. Any spoilers on your next HQ location? Like for me personally, sure, it's Portugal. It's not for sure yet because we're in the middle of buying an apartment, but it hasn't come through yet. We're still doing the paperwork. So that might change. But at the moment, yeah, we're thinking it's Portugal. And it's going to be primarily for tax reasons. But then I went there, and Portugal is awesome. It's an awesome country with an awesome culture and an interesting language and the best food that I've had recently. I live in the Netherlands, not great for food. So I hope that's the HQ that you meant, because we don't have offices at work. So okay, Peter, how come you decided to switch and create a new channel from your travel channel to more engineering or productivity? Um, I didn't really switch. I created that channel for me, for my husband, for my family to keep track of our travels when we moved to Europe. The idea was moving to the Netherlands would open up Europe for us as a travel destination. Remember, we were living in Australia. So Australia is amazing, but it's far from pretty much everything. And so I created that channel just purely as a way to keep in touch with people and let them know what we were up to and where we were. And that turned into this whole process of me learning video editing in the first place. And let me tell you, there is nothing that will get you more comfortable with being on camera than doing a vlog, because especially a travel vlog, because you're usually sleepy or tired or hungry or lost or all of them or a combination of them. And if you get through it, then sitting down and planning a video and controlling the lighting and the audio and all of those things, it seems a lot less daunting. It's never easy. It's still intimidating, but yeah, it does get better. Okay, what else? Let's see. What Ash says, what other colors have you dyed your hair? And which is your favorite? Not much. There's red, there's pink, and that's pretty much it. My favorite is red, I guess, because my favorite color is red, in case you hadn't noticed. But I think I think it might be like some Asian thing. They say that the Asian hair streak is like a trope. I don't care. I just like the color red. He also says top 3 travel destinations. Uh, difficult. I'd say if we took out family, I'd say Slovenia, mm, Moscow, but obviously for reasons. Not now. Moscow was really it challenged a lot of preconceptions that I had. So Slovenia, Moscow, and mm, either Hungary or Poland. Budapest in particular was amazing, but so was Gdansk in Poland. So one of those. Okay, what's your favorite places in España? I have only been to Spain twice. Once I went to Valladolid on a 2-week immersion course. I stayed with a host family. Hablo español también, pero no es perfecto. Me gusta hablar mucho en español y trabajo con personas en mi equipo que hablan muy bien, que son hispanohablantes. And the second place that I went to is Valladolid. Oh, sorry, Valladolid is first. The second is Malaga, which I really enjoyed. It was a bit of a different experience because it's by the water, right? So I think that was also a little bit more touristy. I probably enjoyed Valladolid a little bit more. I would love to see more of Spain, honestly, but your taxes aren't great. Something that I will definitely explore if I do end up moving to Portugal. Spain's just around the border. I think that is pretty much it. I'm out of questions. I hope you enjoyed this little bit of a self-indulgent hour. I thank you for all of the questions that you put. Gives me an idea of what you're interested in seeing next. Thank you for helping me get to 1,000 subscribers. I don't really know what I'm doing, so it's very gratifying and touching to have some support in that area as well. Thank you everybody for watching, and I guess have a good weekend, everyone. Bye.